you from Art on the Blockchain, the place for creatives to come and hang in the crypto space.
This is Rude Cashflows on Furtherfield.
This is Sam Hart.
This is Max Lavelle, and you're listening to Art on the Blockchain.
This is Jimmy Song. You're listening to Art on the Blockchain.
This is Jason Bailey from ArtGnome.com.
Yo, this is Joe Looney, tuned in to the Crypto Creative Podcast.
Art on the Blockchain. Hello, everyone. This is Jessica Angel from Art Project Decentralized.
Hey, this is Christian Moss from Mando.
This is Quaid Artist with Neon District.
What's up, everyone? This is Cryptograffiti, and you're listening to Art on the Blockchain.
This is Bea. This is Judy.
Yo, this is Dropbuster.
This is Jack Holgrave from Codex Protocol.
What's going on? This is Naturel.
Yo, this is Rare Kev from Rare Art Labs.
Hi, this is Sasha Hodler.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Jonathan. This is John Crane from PixEOS.
This is Joe Chappelle.
This is Theo Goodman. You are now listening to Art on the Blockchain podcast, crypto creative style, with your two hosts, Cynthia Gayton and Jay Skrilla. Get mean with it.
All right. Happy New Year, Cynthia.
Oh, Happy New Year. Can you believe it?
Air horn. It's crazy. 2019 is here. Our third year of Art on the Blockchain.
Yep. Today is January 7th.
Yep.
We're back in D.C.
We're on the outskirts in Alexandria right now.
Yep.
At Depth Charge Studios and bringing you episode 27, Art on the Blockchain.
Here we go.
This is episode with Nanu Berks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that. We've been trying to get her on for quite a while, so pretty excited about talking to her.
Yeah, she's a pretty prolific artist. We could talk to her, but I heard you have some top 5 news you want to talk about.
Yep, have a few things wanted to mention.
AOTB top 5.
First of all, there's certainly a lot of events this coming first half of the year that I wanted to kind of start out with. First of all, both of us are going to be part of the Rare AF2. It's going to be on May 18th. That's going to be part of Blockchain Week, which is scheduled for May 10th to the 17th. It's also, there's a lot going on that week. Consensus is May 13th through the 15th of that week. Creative Week is probably overlapped in there somewhere, so it's going to be a lot going on in May.
Be in New York in May.
Yep.
And that's the Rare. She said the Rare AF. She's being very
Art
PC.
Festival.
That is the Rare as fuck too. All right. The Rare as fuck one was about a year ago. Next week, and that was thrown by Rare Art Labs, Joe Looney, and a couple other people. This is part 2, where James Waugh and Fanny and some other people have taken over. It's kind of like a decentralized governance model going on in this little group, right?
That's what James is trying to do. We'll see how successful.
So we'll see his model bloom and prosper to May 18th. Seems to be a lot going on, but we all are looking forward to that. So
yeah, so that'll be a good time. February, we have the TAB conference in Atlanta. Jeff's going to be there.
Yeah, be there.
Or sorry, Skrilla's going to be there.
Jeff will be there too. Jesus.
Then Crypto and Digital Art Fair is organized by New Art Academy is going to be this spring. We don't have an exact date for that yet, so those are the 3 big events or at least time frames we're looking at for the first half.
Southwest.
And South by Southwest is in March.
That'll be a second week of March. I think me and Cynthia are doing something down there, but that's for a special announcement later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so those are the events that are going on. Just wanted to talk about a couple of articles that have come out recently. December 21st of last year, there was an article called Lightning Network Milestone Micro Auction Art Piece sells for .0000037 cents, or I guess dollars, I don't know, by Georgi Georgiev, the 2 first name guy. An art piece entitled Black Swan by Cryptograffiti was auctioned to the lowest bidder for a milli-satoshi.
The least expensive art ever.
Yep. Using Bitcoin Lightning Network. Cryptograffiti is quoted as posting, "I'm excited about a future where micropayments are omnipresent. Artists paid by the view, writers by the poem, and musicians by the listen." So it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. And
check that piece out. That Black Swan piece is, it's incredible thought experiment, exercise, art piece, all that stuff. That the man Cryptograffiti.
It's a kind of very interesting. It's very small.
Yeah.
And very intricate. So when you see how he put it together with tweezers, it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. Check that out if you haven't. That was definitely a good banger at the end of the year for crypto art.
Yep. On January 4th, so just a couple of days ago, there's an article about PixEOS, Pixel by Pixel. This is a new project, offers game where crypto players can create blockchain art. The article is by Connor Blenkinsop. And a quote from the article is, it's offering a 1 million pixel canvas. PixEOS Paint offers a profit-sharing system where players can paint pixels over one another and create a collaborative art piece. At the conclusion of every game, which I couldn't tell from the article when the game ends, and that's just my own side note, a blank canvas begins. It's scheduled to launch the first quarter of 2019. The canvas turns into a non-fungible token. Users can vote on their favorite canvas. Works will go to the highest bidder on their PixEOS Auction House. I haven't seen any of this in operation, so it might be if anybody has tried it, please get in touch and let us know how it works and what you think about it. We're looking for this year to have a lot more interaction, so people can please contact us about your feelings about what you're doing. Oh
yeah, give us those feels. Let it out.
January 6th, just yesterday, there's an article entitled, "Will the Crypto Art Market Continue to Expand in 2019?" Articles by David Robb. According to the article, at least one art retailer, Link's art collection, it's owned by Frank McKeever, said the bear market had little effect on sales, so that's kind of good to hear because everybody's been talking about the bear market generally. And there's something to be said when you have an art retailer commenting that it didn't have any effect, because the art market you would think would be affected by the bear market, that the market itself overall would have an influence, but apparently not. He sold over 1,000 pieces of crypto art, and I'm not sure what crypto art in this context means, whether it represents some crypto value, whether there's images of Bitcoin or Litecoin or whatever in the art itself, or if it's just called crypto art because cryptocurrency is accepted. But anyway, the 1,000 pieces of crypto art represents 75% of the company's sales. It's also pretty awesome. So those are the top five. We've got the events, create articles.
In articles.
Yep.
Sweet. Did you see the Bitcoin 10-year anniversary song?
I did see it, and I had it showed up several times in my Twitter feed, and I hadn't seen the connection, but unfortunately, so now I have. Yeah. I have seen it.
I thought it was all right. I thought it was well produced the way they did it.
Well, they seem to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of personalities and cryptocurrency involved in that. Some friends on the show are on there as well.
I close my eyes and I can see the world that's waiting up for me, that I call my own.
Through the dark, through the door, through where no one's been before, but it feels like home.
They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say I lost my mind.
I don't care, so call me crazy. We can live in a world that we design.
'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake.
I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see.
A million dreams is all it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make.
It's funny because Emoji Nakamoto hit me up trying to do a song also for the 10-year anniversary, and his idea, no offense to the Bitcoin anniversary song, that turned out great, was even better. And I'm going to tell you why. But it wasn't produced or anything, obviously, because once this song came out, it was a wrap. But
when did they record it?
I don't know. They must have been doing it over time because there's a lot of different footage. But you know the Rent song?
Mm-hmm.
And whatever number they say in the Rent song, 550, whatever.
Right.
That, I think that was like the block that the 10-year anniversary was, so it would have been perfect. And he wrote a song and sent me the lyrics. And we're going to do it, try to do it quickly, but
525,600 minutes, 525,000 moments, oh dear. 500.
That's something too that I've been thinking about for the past several months. Is sitting on things.
Yeah,
is probably not. Letting it gestate is probably a good idea. At least let it simmer in your mind. But sometimes, go with your gut with regard to putting things out there.
You can't rest on your laurels.
Yep, exactly.
Shit moves too fast. Fuck.
So what else is going on?
Let's see what else I got here. The music side is the Bitcoin Lightning Jukebox. I saw, if you look at our Twitter page, AOTB Twitter page, that was tweeted out from there, and I forget the guy's name. I think it was JD or something, but he created this Lightning Jukebox with Bitcoin. He run a QR code over it with a Bitcoin wallet, or your Lightning wallet, and it instantly plays for like minuscule amounts. So that was cool.
And they use Raspberry Pi.
They use Raspberry Pi, and I think it's like something going on where it automates every block or something happens to it. There's more to it than that. Check it out. It was interesting. Yeah, I guess also we're looking for music ideas for that Rare as Fuck 2 Rare Art Festival 2 conference, May 18th. And so check. Yeah, let us know about that. What did you think about 2018 crypto art? You got any thoughts on like a broad
impressions?
Yeah, what anything come out of it? What do you think's happening?
Well, certainly with the fine art world, it really took hold. I was very very surprised, but I have to say that I think the Rare AF one had a big impact because I think the auction, if nothing else, not that there have never been auctions before or anything like that, but the excitement and the unexpected enthusiasm of the audience definitely had an impact on what people thought about auctioning digital works, because in terms of where these things exist, I think people were blown away who were not familiar with that world at all. Were blown away with the possibilities. So if I had to say anything, that was definitely a starting point for fine art interest in auctioning digital works.
Yeah, and that enthusiasm was brought to you by the Rare Pepe Trading Establishment. Again, another thing that Rare Pepe helped launch, so that it's there historically for all y'all to digest.
And then the people who participated in that was another very interesting thing, is that even though I was familiar with a lot of their projects, it was really a pulling together of teams and projects that, even though you might have heard about them, to see the people involved I thought was really interesting. And I think that because I've been reading art-related publications for a really long time, and I've noticed for the past 4 years how much blockchain is now appearing in articles related to fine art, and the solutions that are being offered for provenance and all those kinds of things are part of a conversation that hadn't existed before. So last year was definitely about having conversations about new technology, having conversations about how can you interact with a younger audience, or maybe not as wealthy audience. How do you continue to engage your base audience? And I think that was definitely something going on last year. I like you was hoping that there'd be some convergence of ideas with regard to music, and I'm hoping actually some new ideas will come into play this year, because I'm not sure there's enough ideas. I think there's a lot of potential solutions to problems in terms of distribution of money, but the ideas, there should be more. Music has been such the sugar in introducing new technology. I don't think it's really being used to its full potential in this environment. And I'm hoping for more collaborative, bringing in musicians on so many different elements of this. So that's what I hope to see. But last year was definitely fine art world. Auctioning digital works was by far the thing that engaged people's imagination the most. At least in my opinion.
Kept it exciting. Yeah. Money was a big aspect of crypto art last year. The dollar bill, y'all. Yeah, I tend to have a theory too that that first crypto fest in January 13th last year, I think it was. Was it on January 13th? Was it Friday also?
No, it was just one day. It was a Saturday.
All right. That would have been eerie. But I think the excitement from that definitely launched the whole scene. So, big ups to that. Round of applause. And I definitely think that the music and crypto is the next big thing, kind of how art took off. Hopefully it can happen this year, maybe next year. But I see a lot of, we talked about it on the radio show yesterday. Y'all, probably like 20 people heard that. But I guess to recap, basically the micro, the instant transactions, instant payments, stuff like that. Side chains like Loom on ETH or something, or Lightning on Bitcoin or something. I think it'll be good. Right now we're doing tokens and music, Tune, music coins, stuff like that. Ujo accepts, they do Ethereum. But you need some kind of instant payout, kind of like how Tune's model is, where it's instant. Once you listen, the song gets listened to, it instantly gets split up to who you put the smart contract into for like 20% here, 30% here. But if that can happen with like Bitcoin, Ethereum, something that's more liquid for the artist, I think that would be a game changer for sure. Tokens are cool, but they're too illiquid, but it is what's going on now, and it's cool to experiment with, and I still want to see a more liquid thing, I guess you could say, for payment-wise.
Yeah, because it seems to start out with tokens just being something that you'd have as proof of being involved, more so than looked at as something that you could get rid of easily.
This is the problem right now, is that for most part, the music on these crypto sites are done not by musicians with big fan bases, so it's mostly like crypto traders and some artists that are into the future shit, future tech and stuff, trying things early, and some with a little bit of fan base, etc. Some people have done some things for sure, but once the platforms where you need the tokens to access the music, right now it's just open to anybody, you know, then that's really going to dictate if it can fly or not, because why would I want tokens for artists that I probably don't listen to for the most part, you know, they're not in my shuffle or anything like that. So that's the hump I think people have to get over. You have to have a platform also that's being used by artists that matter too.
I think one thing that might be interesting, because I talked to Skrill about this too, is with regard to stuff that's just now entered into the public domain. So, you know, for a lot of artists and musicians in particular, you have to use samples from other people's work and all this kind of stuff. But the dump of not just music, but books and poems and all these kinds of things that are now available to the public, I'd really like to see, because, you know, in the fine arts world, there's a lot of art that's in the public domain that are the old masters. Most of them are public domain. So I'd like to see an experiment with things that are in the public domain that are not going to cause musicians any problems. They're not going to have to worry about licensing. They're not going to have to worry about any of that, and create something that can demonstrate how this all works. Because I think licensing is an issue and it needs to be solved. But let's play with something that nobody's going to have to worry about getting sued. Mm-hmm. People need to play with things that are easily available, and nobody's going to get in trouble for using it. That experimentation, I think, would be really, really cool to see. So,
the licensing stuff with music is also that's important. That's a good thing for blockchain too. It could be like the smart contracts if you could set it up. We've talked about it several times, but for musicians to, you know, charge $1 for a use in your YouTube video, or $10 for this, or use such and such for a commercial or a movie soundtrack. You can have all the rights kind of written out. But again, it has to be perfect contract, because once it's set in stone, then that's it, right? There's no amendments or anything like that, or
right. I mean, I think there's actually some good ideas out there at how you could amend some of these smart contracts, because it would be interesting. And I have to talk to, I don't know who to talk to about this, but how can you amend an existing block, in the sense that not necessarily amend that actual thing, but recognize it as the primary block, and then subsequent blocks being related to that thing? How can you design a system that it recognizes the terms are being modified here, and we can move on from there? Because I think we're still dealing with humans, and so until humans are perfect and don't make mistakes, and a lot of mistakes are not intentional. Most mistakes, I think, are not intentional. There are some people who design things with the intent of harming, but for the most part, we don't. And not dismiss human, the ability for humans to change their minds together. I think it's to me, it's not a good approach to say, well, too bad, you got the date wrong, and so we're not gonna. Yeah. And then saying, oh, you're going to have to create a brand new thing. Well, trying to get people to agree, anybody who's actually...
and it costs money each time.
Trying to get people to agree again after they've... It's like next to impossible to get people in the same room. It's like a miracle when a contract comes together.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We got Nanu standing by. You want to...
Yeah, let's go ahead.
You want to chat?
Guns and butt.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, what's up?
Awesome, good morning. How's it going?
It's doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing great. I love Austin, man. I'm glad to be back.
Oh, is that where you live, or spend most of your time?
This is where my studio's at, yeah, but I'm moving in 3 months, so I'm really enjoying it now.
Oh, wow.
So you're in Austin, Texas, and where are you moving to?
I'm moving to Bali, probably, but otherwise somewhere in Asia.
Wow.
Oh, damn.
How's it going over there?
Well, it's just boring Alexandria. We don't have the... So why Bali?
I just want to move back to the jungle-ish area, and living costs are half, and the nature is really accessible. So I'm mostly wanting to be back in the jungle beach area.
Are you gonna get a pet panther?
I hope so, man. I was with some pet goats last weekend.
I saw that.
Dude, oh my god, it did so much for my serotonin intake. It was great.
What's the best thing for people that aren't familiar with goats? What's the best thing about being around a goat?
So baby goats are as cuddly as cats and dogs, but they are less annoying, I guess, and just more rare. So it's a weird
rare
experience.
Goats.
Raregoats.io, yeah.
Somebody's spinning up that ETH node right now. I can smell it.
You know it.
Well, they're so curious. Goats are. They watch you in a different way. I don't think cats don't pay as much attention, but goats, like, they watch you. They follow all of your movements. They're a lot more attentive to me, because I was like, wow, this is even more in your face than dogs.
This is Goat Talk Radio with Cynthia.
I love
Gayton
goats.
And
I think
Nanu
they're
Berks.
so awesome. I'd love to have goats eat all the poison ivy and eat all the stuff I don't like.
Oh man.
Goat Farm is in Austin.
This is like 2 hours away from Austin in Lampasas, and I just went to do a tech detox. When you're in this field, sometimes it's hard to get away a little bit, and it was nice to be able to do 3 days, 4 days without screens, Wi-Fi.
Yeah, how's the clarity in your brain after that? Is it like fasting?
Yeah, it was amazing. I came back, I've been wanting to move for about 6 months, and I came back knowing for sure that I was moving back to nature. I was nomadic for like 10 years, and I lived mostly in a combination of beaches and jungle, and it's so different what it does for your system. It just puts your whole nervous system at a different vibration, and you're always more calm, so things don't affect you as much.
Yeah, that's what's up.
So jungle meaning what?
I lived in different parts of the Amazon jungle, sometimes little towns outside of the jungle entrances in Colombia and Peru, and I also trekked through the middle of the Amazon from the Ecuadorian Podocarpus entrance. So it was wild. I mean, just to be there in the middle of this thing where nature is where nature is going to win, regardless of what you try to do.
Nature always wins.
Is there any blockchain in the nature? Is there anything in the jungle that's blockchain yet? Have they caught on?
I don't know, probably. I was thinking the whole Amazon appropriation name and how they're getting onto the blockchain and stuff the other day. And soon, though. It's coming soon.
It's all blockchain.
That's what's up. Did you think much about the blockchain when you were on your vacation for 3 or 4 days?
I feel like it's always like ingrained in my mind, because it's just such a part of when you understand a little bit of the system, or you're curious a little bit about the tech, then you can see how it applies to everything. And yeah, I try to fall somewhere in the middle between not being a super fanatic and saying let's tokenize everything and blockchain everything, because I don't think that's useful.
Right.
But for sure you can see, I find myself being that annoying person sometimes, and I've learned to keep my mouth shut, when you're like, oh wow, you should do this with this technology. I keep
People
it to
look
myself
at you
now.
crazy. That sounds like a lot of work.
So maybe give a little background about yourself, because we've just we've known about you. And so we just start conversation, but introduce yourself a little bit.
Okay, we'll do. Yeah, it was awesome to meet you all in Miami, because same, I've heard so many podcast episodes, and I've known about you all forever, and it was great to get a chance to meet at our Basel area in Miami.
Not the jungle.
Not the jungle. A different jungle, though, like a human jungle over there. I'm basically from Argentina. I was born there, and then I was nomadic for most of my life. So I took off and hitchhiked, backpacked through South and Central America.
How old were you when you did that?
I think I left my house the first time when I was 13 or something, but then I was full-time pretty much backpacking when I was 17 or so. And then I did college. I was really, really, I guess, lucky to find a professor who let me do a lot of my college while I was traveling and write papers and send them back and have them apply as credits. So I had kind of like a dual life where I was able to live the nomadic off the system life for most of my upbringing, and then also have a traditional degree and do a little bit of like the U.S. university lifestyle. So it was a cool hybrid. And yeah, I backpacked. Then I went to Europe and the Middle East and stuff like that, and lived off the grid and painted murals in exchange for housing and food. And eventually I came back to the States and started working remotely as a digital nomad.
Is your family here? Do you have other family here in the States?
My mom and my brother are in the California area, and then my dad, the rest of my family is in Argentina.
Okay. Well, that's so with well, it's an interesting thing with regard to the education. So is that something that's part of the education system in Argentina, that you're able to do that sort of thing, or is it really, really super special for you to be able to get credits?
It was like a really, really wild hybrid that happened just because of a professor here in the States. I applied to the States, to UMass Amherst here outside of Boston, and then wanted to be backpacking pretty much. And so I took some credits at the school and then some while I was traveling, and it just all worked out somehow. But in Argentina, the education system is super badass, but it's one of those things that, it's completely free for people, but it's one of those things where a lot of people from other countries will come, get a free education, and then leave, and no professionals stay in the country, or less professionals stay in the country. So, man, the whole system in Argentina is super messed up, and that's why I got into blockchain to begin with.
Were you in Argentina when the whole inflation happened on the currency?
Yeah, so I was there during the crisis of 2002, 2008, 2009, and continuing. But some of the stages were pretty gnarly. I remember waking up and my mom basically trying to explain to my brother and I that she had lost all her life savings and that they were stolen by the banks, and it was such a weird concept to me. I was 9-10 years old, and yeah, the first time, and then just hearing something like that, like, oh well, what do you mean? Like, you put your money in a bank and then overnight it was gone? Who took it, Yeah. And so then I remember going out on the streets and protesting with my friends and hitting pots and pans, just like in the movies, and throwing rocks at the windows of these banks, and people were crashing in to steal their computers and try to get data back, and we were spray painting outside of the banks and just crazy, angry at them. So yeah, so it was quite a thing to live through.
Oh yeah, it's quite a 6th and 7th grade education. Whatever.
Yeah, it's just it's remarkable, because I had studied Venezuela and Argentina in particular, and they were considered, in Brazil, of course, considered the forerunners of how things were going to change with the economic systems in South America. So it's really kind of discouraging. It's an awful thing to hear you're having to experience those things, because there was so much hope.
Absolutely, yeah. And they did something already, which I guess back then I didn't really understand as this important, but now I see how it's similar to tokenization and other types of currencies. They had ticket canastas and patacones, and so these were two separate invented monopoly money currencies that they decided to print one day because inflation, they couldn't print more money anymore. They were in so much trouble. They were stealing so much money. It was so corrupt. They're like, okay, let's print out these things that people can pretty much use only at supermarkets and figure some shit out for now. Yeah, it was wild.
And it's not, it's crazy. Because it's not like there's no resources or, land or anything. It's really a mind bender.
Yeah. Yeah, we have some of the biggest natural sweetwater resources in the world, but they're owned by Americans now. So they're not really from Argentina anymore.
Oh. Don't even get me down that road.
Okay. God bless the USA.
God bless America. So God bless America. Heard tomorrow ain't promised today. The end of time is like an hour away. Damn.
Hey, I'm almost time here, so it's the world is becoming so kind of like a Pangea in all of its good and all of its bad. So that's why moving to Bali makes sense for now. It's, a lot of digital nomads are able to do that now, kind of live or grow from a monetary economy in the States or wherever it's working, and then live in a place that has lower living costs. And it's such a mind-bending situation and all the ethical implications that come with that. But yeah, it's an interesting time in history for sure.
So are you going to be doing digital art in Bali?
Yeah, so I'll be doing some digital art. I'll be doing the same that I'm doing now, basically painting commissions. I have a couple to wrap up here at the studio, and doing some digital art, doing some advocating, posts and podcasts and stuff like that. And a lot of my work now is moving to Hong Kong and Tokyo and that area, so I imagine it'll be nice to be closer. And I'll still be coming back to the States probably every 6 months or so, every 4 months.
And how is your brother, younger or older than you?
My brother's older. He works for Amazon. It's out there in Silicon Valley area.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you lived in the Amazon and your brother works for Amazon?
How weird is that?
It's so weird. We can make some fun poetry out of this. At one point, my stepbrother was working for Alexa, and I was working for Bixby, and my other brother was working for the other AI in the market. And so at one point, my family had, one person in each AI system being created, and it was so interesting. Like, we couldn't really talk to each other. It was
wow.
It was yeah, it was funny.
I'm from Seattle, so I am always thinking about the effect of the Seattle industries on the rest of the world.
That's kind of like a rainforest too, actually.
Well, that's why I was wondering what jungle meant if in Nanu's life, because there's the rainforest and in Seattle and rainforest generally. And
when I met you, you were working at Rainforest Cafe.
What the fuck you talking about, man?
No. But it's a different thing. It's certainly colder. It's certainly
what does jungle mean to y'all?
Well, it's interesting. It definitely things come to my mind, and about the humidity and the nature and the wildness of things. And rainforest, lots of rain. Everybody's trying to hide.
When I think of the jungle, I think of Queensbridge in the 80s.
Sending this one out.
I thought you were in crack shootouts until we finally cleared this all up. I'm glad that we had this talk.
Without weed, you know what I'm saying? That old real shit. There's a war going on outside, no man is safe from. You could run, but you can't hide forever from these streets that we done took. You walking with your head down, scared to look. You shook, cause ain't no such things as halfway crooks. They never around when the beef cooks in my part of town. It's similar to Vietnam. Now we all grown up and old and beyond cops control.
So it'll be so you travel by foot most of the time. You got a backpack. And that's another thing that I think of, like backpacking. I backpacked in Europe, not a jungle, but trains are kind of, precarious. It can be.
Got some interesting characters on them.
How long did you do that for?
I did that off and on, but I was a lot older than most of the people who did that. But I didn't do it while I was in college. I worked all through college, but when I had a little bit of money, and just hung out in hostels and stuff like that, it was really it taught me about how to trust people on the fly.
Yes, exactly. People are so much nicer and willing to be kind to you and genuine than we assume, I guess, or than it's whatever the fear ingrained, by the media and by all the stuff. Yeah. Of course, we have to be careful, but it is incredible when you're traveling alone, especially, how nice and honest people are.
It was really life-changing experience for me, because I, being in the States, you can't go beyond a certain parts of the country without feeling maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe I shouldn't. There's certain places that I shouldn't go. But traveling through Europe, and it might have been just naivete on my part, that I was like, I don't care. Just people I knew were sleeping in the train stations, and there were people I were letting borrow things that I would never in life had let people borrow. at home, and I was like, wow, maybe I'm even nicer than I think I am. So it was. I recommend. I mean, not everybody can do it. I learned to bring flip flops into the shower, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. All right. It sounds like some jailhouse tips. Thin line, huh?
It really is. But you can leave the hostel. Yeah.
That's what's up. Y'all have any tips? What's the tip for our aspiring backpackers out there, our blockchain backpackers?
For the blockchain backpackers, that's a good one. Well, I think what you said is true. Even I'm nicer. I feel like backpacking this way rewires your brain. Anytime that you have a new situation that you've never approached before, you just have this opportunity to create new connections and to act in a completely different way than you have been behaving. Kind of cuts through all the patterns effortlessly. So if you're trying to, if you're a backpack, or if you're a person who's trying to cut through some habits or get a new perspective, backpacking, it's one of the most efficient ways to do it. You just drop somewhere, you have nothing, no systems, and you start from zero, and you kind of discover who you really are in relationship to your surroundings and to people. Number one advice would be to don't overthink it and just do it. Like, buy a one-way ticket somewhere and start the journey, man.
Maybe learn some Latin so you can read some of the signs if you don't understand the language. That was one thing I was glad I took some, had some language background, because it was very helpful in areas that if I didn't know the language. And
what did you learn, like Solidity?
Yeah, exactly. You gotta learn some Solidity, you gotta learn some Linux.
There you go.
But language skills, man, if I could, that definitely was helpful.
That's really neat.
That's what's up.
I wish I learned some Basque languages. That's what I went to Basque region because I'd always been fascinated, and I didn't know, I couldn't read any of that, but it was helpful to have some French.
Y'all should set up some kind of scavenger hunt with the QR codes all over the world, and
So I'm actually thinking about that. Yeah, I'm talking with another artist, and we're doing a collaboration, trying to do some more guerrilla style, more fun, interactive things like that.
Yeah.
So we're thinking about some type of project like that. Also working on a transparency art project with some holograms. It's getting weird. I'm excited. It's getting really weird.
There were probably a lot of digital nomads like yourself that could really do something with that. It'd be kind of cool to follow you all's, but not in a weird way. Follow what you all are doing.
Speaking of digital nomads, the first Ethereum blockchain meetup I went to in 2016, I met a guy and we were gonna develop something. I don't remember what we were doing exactly, but the guy, he's a digital nomad. He didn't. He had the most fucked up shoes I've ever seen. The soles were hanging off. It was crazy. It was his feet were sticking through cartoon style, and all this stuff. Nice guy. It was.
Is that what it means to be a digital nomad? When you guys say
digital nomad, I think of this guy who looked like he took a shower once a week, and his feet were sticking through his shoes that he had probably since he was 8 years old.
Oh. You learn a lot about people. There was this guy from Austria that washed his clothes in the ocean, and that freaked me out. But he was like, well, if you leave, the ocean's got salt in it, and it disinfects everything, and he just left stuff out on the, on the concrete and dried out. And I was like, I had never in my life thought
probably really starchy.
It was bright,
Hey, use nature. I think Nanu probably has some tips about washing clothes in nature.
It's so interesting, the weird stuff you end up doing on the road. Yeah, seriously. A lot of people think, or I guess I think sometimes when I'm about to travel again, I'm gonna miss this comfort or this type of appliances or whatever. You get so inventive on the road. I mean, yeah, it's amazing. I remember living for about 2 months in a tent up north of Mancora, Peru, and so I was living in this little camping area that had water and showers and all this stuff, but I was basically in a tent, and in this tent I had a little mattress, because I've been there for so long, so I had a little mattress, a coffee table, and my djembe. It was just so minimal, and I had everything I needed, and every morning I would get up, and with the sun, you know, and run into the ocean to wake up, basically just being tumbled by this massive waves. And one day I woke up, it was really cloudy, and I thought it was 7 or 8 a.m. or 6 or 7 a.m., but it was actually 11, and the tide was 3 times as high, and I ran into the ocean to kind of do my everyday thing, and I got tumbled hardcore, pulled into the ocean, almost died over there, you know, crazy. And so when I came out, you know, I came out of there pretty scared, ran back in to make sure that I was never terrified of the ocean forever, kind of fix that. And then when I came back to the camping place, we all decided that we needed a way to know for sure, like some type of, because we had no technology, we had nothing at that point purposely, you know, so we needed a way to know for sure what time it was. And so even little things like that, it's interesting to see how people just start getting together and spin ideas and try to make either like a solar clock or just, you know, even situations like that. You just get so creative for the fun of it, kind of, you know, for the survival, but for the fun of it. So I think being in that situation where you have nothing of the traditional cultural items that you would use naturally puts you in such a creative, expansive thinking mode. So yeah, it's very fulfilling to live that way. And I never thought I would come back and have, you know, an apartment or a laptop and live and manage a business from my phone, but here we are.
Here we are, that American corporate life.
Right.
Was there any Lord of the Fly moments while you were living this way?
I mean, for sure there was, yeah, for sure. And I mean, I guess there were a lot of sketchy and weird moments. I took a lot of, you know, I was hitching rides from trucks, and trucks are great because you can get long distance, so you can hop a ride sometimes it's 8 hours instead of having to take a lot of short rides. One time I took a ride from a really sketchy person, and I feel like my intuition is usually on point, and this was my system. I don't know if this works for you, but this is my system. I would stop a car and you know, lower the ventanilla, like the window, and shake their hand. And so with your 2 middle fingers, you can put them on their wrist and you can check their pulse.
If they're alive?
Yeah.
Is it a zombie?
Yeah.
They're not a zombie or a robot, because at this point you have no idea.
Right.
And then look at them in the eyes and see if their pupils dilate or not when you ask them questions. And so you can ask them, you know, their names and all this stuff. So it's like a lie detector. And so that works for me in combination with my intuition for a long time. So I was doing that, and I checked every person that I got in the car with. Sometimes I would say no thank you. But this one person had the car full of family, and so he seemed like a family man, and that's why I trusted, and I got in the car. But the kids weren't his, and they got dropped off like a block after I got on. And then I was stuck in this car with this crazy person who started speeding and took me, it was like a dirt road, and took me to this like little barn that had like a metal door. So this was the only time in my life that I pulled a knife on this person.
Yes.
And I had a pocket knife, and I pulled this knife on him, and I was like, listen, man, I am way smaller than you are, but I'm way crazier than you are. You need to let me out right now, you know? And so that was probably the, you know, one of those moments where...
Wow.
Yeah, you look back, just grateful to be alive.
That's one of those I feel alive moments. That's the ultimate high.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you generally travel on your own?
Yeah, usually I would, yeah.
Yeah, that's a liberating thing, too, because that was, I went by myself, but that's why I stayed in hostels, too. It's like, you know, you're forced to be with people, and traveling by myself in a hotel might not have been good, because nobody'd know if something had happened to me. But people, you know, if people that you are staying with in a hostel, if you don't show up, people tend to put out somewhat of a search party to find you.
For sure.
You know, but
how'd you get into the blockchain space?
I heard about it in 2012 when I was in Chichen, like I was around Mexico somewhere, and some hippies on a bus were talking about it and told me a little bit, but I didn't care about money or anything at that time or whatever, any type of technology. I didn't know that I cared about technology. Then I come to find out I do. But anyway, I heard about it and it was interesting. It seemed very idealistic. Then when I became a digital nomad, some of the remote writing gigs that I took from AngelList were offering to pay me in Bitcoin. And so I started receiving some payment for that, you know, a little bit here and there. And then as I was making art, like activist art about the governments and different ways of living, I realized that nomadic values are actually super similar to the blockchain decentralization values, redefinition of value, of opportunities, of decentralization of information. And so it was crazy to realize how the parallel life that I've been living as a nomad outside of the system existed within technology, and that this technology could provide that structure and the actual skills to decentralize the systems that I didn't like. So it was mind-blowing for me to realize that I didn't need to be outside of the system completely, that I could actually adopt a new one that might be able to shift the current one, and that felt so empowering. So I started reading about it and just kind of fell into the rabbit hole hardcore, and a year and a half later, I was pretty much making crypto art full time, just obsessed with it,
Dope. What's how many crypto art pieces have you sold, and how do you sell them? Like, can you give any artists listening? Like, a lot of artists I know always ask how do I get into this space, blah blah, and I try to show them a couple things, but it's not always the greatest thing. I think some of them don't show up. But do you have any tips for artists on how to sell their works for crypto, or how to make crypto art?
Sure, yeah, and I think you guys do an awesome job. I mean, I love listening to the podcast, and it has been so useful for me when I was starting to sell art, but kind of I had no idea how other people were doing it, if it was working or not. And a year and a half ago, I remember listening to some podcasts that really, really made me feel like there was something here. You were basically the most concise and useful type of specific information for art on the blockchain in community that I could have found. So I think you're doing a lot for our artists, just being able to put all the information together in one place and get all these people together. So I'm super grateful for you guys, and very, very thankful to be on this podcast. I just wanted to say that.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
That's big. Appreciate that.
I think, there's some things I had resistance to before that I can see how they're very useful. There's awesome systems like Rare and a few other online platforms, Dada, and I mean, there's so many now, and so many that have come and gone, but it depends on what you're doing. If you're a digital artist, then doing limited copies or limited prints online and building that scarcity is probably a great place to start. It's pretty simple. You upload your file and you set your amount of prints that you want to have and the price, and you can start experimenting with that world. For me, doing merch like pants and shirts and stuff like that is a good way, and receiving crypto, you can pay for the shirts in crypto. It's a good way to kind of self-advertise and then lead people also to buying original pieces if they want. So as far as numbers, I have probably sold, man, that's hard to tell. I don't know, because I started live painting at conferences. Yeah. And not a lot of people were doing it. And so the first painting that I ever live painted at Token Fest sold for like $6,000 on the spot, because crypto was high and people were stoked, and I was the only artist there, and I made a time capsule. Yeah, it was awesome.
What kind of currency was it?
I took ETH when it was super high.
Can I ask, and you don't have to answer, but did you cash out or did you hold on to it?
So, yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And there's some controversy around this, so I'm glad you asked. Mm-hmm. It was pretty high, and I had only hot wallets at the time, and I had to pay rent and stuff, So I went home and I said, well, I'm probably going to keep some in here, but I'm probably going to cash out some to pay for my living expenses. And so I cashed out some and kept some. I've always been really lucky with intuition about this stuff too, honestly. I've always kind of made, I made money with EOS, I made money even with Ripple, cashed that out as soon as I could. And but it's been really interesting to see, to have to use it for a living. It'd be great to be able to keep it and to store it, but the idea is that we can also use it in our everyday lives. So that has been great. But But yeah, I've sold a lot of pieces between the prints and the shirts and all this stuff, but I'm trying to make more hyper detailed pieces and produce less, because at one point, and this might be useful for other artists, so at one point I thought that I wanted to paint for a living, like I just wanted to create art pieces and sell them, and that's how I wanted to make a living. Well, in order to do that, I usually have to sell 2 to 4 really dope art pieces, very well priced art pieces a month. But the type of art that I make is pretty detailed, and so it takes me a long time to make each piece. And so I've been working like an insane person, like a lot of us in space, running the website and painting full time and doing my PR and coming on podcasts and stuff. And it's just not sustainable, and it's very stressful, and it takes away from the fun, creative part that I wanted. And so after realizing that, I'm thinking that I'm way more interested in advocating and doing workshops with people and teaching them how to retrieve their own creativity, because I believe that creativity heals, and that it's a very powerful tool to dissipate information and to make it digestible for people. And if everybody has the tool, we're all better off, to express our own feelings, to express information. So I'm looking forward to doing more of the workshops that I have. If you go to nanuberks.com/magic, you can see the workshops there. And they're fun, man. I would love to do some with you sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So those are really awesome.
That's good.
Yeah,
we need more art education on blockchain and Bitcoin, etc. And period. But you're right. I mean, the arts is what helps advocate it to people outside of quote unquote nerd world.
Yeah, it's interesting when you're talking about being a digital nomad and then doing all the traveling and backpacking. There was a time when the EU didn't have a unified currency. You had to go to exchange your money in order to pay for things, and so you're not doing anything with regarding to accepting a particular type of currency in order to pay your rent that didn't accept that particular kind of currency or payment mechanism. People had to do that on a regular basis. So it's interesting to think that should there be a difference between what this cryptocurrency is doing and what people did with currency? You go to an exchange, you put in your dollars, and you get pesos or whatever, or you'd get euros, or you do these kinds of things.
Or you get 3 donkeys.
Well, maybe they didn't have them in stock, but if they happen to have the donkeys in stock,
I would trade some of my shit coins for 3 donkeys right now.
But it should be people thinking about that versus But I was really fascinated with the universal currency notions with Bitcoin. That was really what got me involved or interested in this. Is like, can I going from place to place to place in this particular currency I could use it's but not so much nowadays for just everyday type purchases, but still.
You're right, though. I mean, that's the thing that people complain, or like whatever, where a lot of us are confused when we learn something new and all the stuff, and we get to to see all the roadblocks first, like how is this practical and stuff. This stuff has been happening forever, like you said, in Europe before the unified currency, you were already doing that, and trade in way back when, and trade economies and gift economies, and just switching a glass of milk for a glass of water, 6 eggs or whatever. It's been happening since the beginning of time, and now that we finally have the technology to make this, to trace it, to track it, to make it more fair, to make it decentralized, to empower people, I think it's a wonderful, epic opportunity. It's just, we're going through the growing pains, it's 10 years old. I feel like in 10 more years, we're going to really see the fruits of this. But right now, it's like a tantrum-throwing child. And on top of that, all of us are kind of tantrum-throwing child also, growing with this technology, like all excited and hyped about it, and then depressed about it, and, it's crazy. So
I hope we see, like you said, the fruits of the labor, not the vegetables of the labor, because the vegetables could be the other side of the coin, where it's one currency, everything tracked, and you have no privacy at all. So that's the scary part about blockchain, is people who get into the blockchain and don't realize what blockchain, I would say blockchain, but really what Bitcoin was made for.
What do you think is going to happen? What's your hunch about it?
I don't know. I love the drama that unfolds every day in it. So I'm captivated for sure. And I don't know. I like it. You know, I like the experiment. I like what we've been all talking about and doing in the space the last few years. You know, I hope that, you know, like, I guess, like, rather than the XRP army, let's say, winning, I hope like the Bitcoin army wins. In terms of, like, you know, how this is all going, because, you know, a lot of people are just in this, you know, there are a lot of bro-vesters jump in and have opinions, and a lot of government is scared, and, you know, I don't want to see this as, like, I want to see this as cash on the internet, not us handing over more of our rights. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I'm excited about the Own Your Data movement. You know, that stuff feels very powerful to me. I got to make a birthday present for BK, and then kind of I added Own Your Data and stuff in there, and it became kind of the first art piece of that movement. And now other people have been making pieces about that too. And it's just been, I feel like that's so important and wild, you know, to be a part of this revolution. We're messing with some real stuff and countering some interesting forces, but I do feel hopeful. I feel like this, by the time that, you know, I don't know if this sounds too crazy, but I feel like by the time that Bitcoin and other whatever system currencies are normalized, you know, in another 10 years, and it's not a big deal, like how PayPal and Venmo are not a big deal now and everybody uses them, or how we just gain trust on new systems, you know, that just become part of our everyday life. We are also going to have a very different definition of what trade and trust and all these things mean. And so I'm interested in seeing how beyond the thinking of translating fiat and crypto into money or whatever, what the bigger concept is going to be, you know, like what the bigger understanding of how we operate is going to be. Because the whole idea of tokenize everything that I don't agree with. The only thing that I like about that is that we all have assets and we all have things that we can use. And so if there's a sweet spot, I think, between working for exposure, which I would love to talk about for Artistics, and then trade in a way that is fair equal value, not fair equal money or amount, but value. Right. That is really interesting, you know. So like if I have a house and I'm trying to hire a nanny to take care of my kids, and this person needs a house and some amount of money to survive or to put away or to pay their bills or whatever, you set up a smart contract about a fair equal exchange of value that is not necessarily fair in the assets count, but that it makes sense for both people to live and to empower each other. And I think that that's going to be way more interesting when people are house swapping and car swapping and just being able to live a more free life outside of the monetary, like exactly how many dollars you have or how much Bitcoin you have. Yeah.
Right.
And that centralization certainly is a problem. If you're willing to sell a painting that in other world would be worth $10,000, but you need water.
Right. Exactly.
There shouldn't be any problem with that. And there shouldn't be somebody making a determination, well, the person who gave you the water, you know, obviously they were getting a lot more than the cost of that water. Well, that shouldn't be the measurement. It should be whether the parties who are entering into the agreement agree that it is.
You don't want me to regulate your trade, you mean?
Nope. I mean, that's what I'd like to see.
The people have spoken.
That's what I mean, that was how things were done. It was all about, you know. So I was.
Right now,
yeah. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, we're still paying. We're paying what, like, you know, we're paying $2 or something for a Coca-Cola, and then water. It's just insane to me that Coca-Cola is taking water from the rivers and putting sugar in it and then selling it cheaper. It's in our water.
I wish they were putting sugar in it. They're putting the corn syrup in it. Unless you're in Mexico, I guess. Yeah. Shout out to Mexico. The bottle Cokes.
This is true.
But yeah, on a side note, did anybody see that corn syrup movie with Matt Damon?
What was it called?
I don't know. He was like I forget what it was called, but it was about how the corn syrup market happened in the 90s and how it overtook everything, and they dollar fixed everything, and the dude was like a megalomaniac. It's crazy. It's a good movie.
Wow, was it censored? That's why we don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know as much about it. You watch until I don't know how much it's true in the movie. It's a fucking movie. But Matt Damon convinced me that the corn syrup guys are fucking wilding out. They were like the penny stock guys for a little bit.
Yeah, corn syrup is not good for you.
No, surely not.
Except in pecan pies.
Really?
Everybody makes pecan pies with corn syrup.
Oh man, I don't do that. They don't do that in the jungle. Did we see what?
Did you see the documentary, The Price of Everything?
Not yet.
Mm-mm.
Oh man, I didn't know if I wanted to like go cry myself to sleep or go out and start, I don't know, continue the revolution probably somewhere in the middle.
Throwing rocks at JP Morgan.
Yeah.
No, it was great. It's nothing that you don't know, but I highly recommend watching it. And yeah, we'd love to hear what you have to say and how you feel about artists working for exposure, because man. I'm at the end of that, I think, understanding that a little bit, and yeah, and I just want to see what you feel about it.
I have a lot of opinions on that. Where do we start? Jesus.
Well, that I read about the artist in art newspaper, so I didn't know. I couldn't find any place here locally that was showing the movie, so I'm gonna have to investigate that. But just the idea of, he was well known at the beginning. I'm assuming this is the same thing, the same artist, where he was very well known at the beginning of his career for dots or something that he was doing, and then and then over time, people rejected him. His friends rejected him because he stopped painting that style of dot painting. Mm-hmm. And then he kind of fell out of favor, and then now he's kind of being rediscovered, I'm sure, in part because of this movie. And he's like, this shouldn't be, how I'm measured, how is work measured in this way. But he was kind of the, get off my lawn kind of guy. At least that's how he sounded in the article. But he made some really good points about determining value. And he made some comment about museums are all about the fads, that they're trying to attract attention as whatever's hot right now,
right.
Instead of having, unless you're dead.
And they were saying that basically private collectors have outbid museums, and so now a lot of the wonderful historic work is being hid somewhere in a London flat, and then people don't have access to it anymore.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of great art pieces in storage rooms around the world, too.
It's kind of heartbreaking to hear them talk about the art as just some asset that you trade, and I get it. I mean, we all know this, but just not even talk about the color of the painting, it's just more like, yeah, I bought this for $8 million, and now it's worth $50 million, and it's so insane, and I feel like there's such a great way to empower, to use that in an empowering way, like to trade assets for assets instead of putting up whatever price on it.
I think the art it's all about how it's marketed at the end of the day, unfortunately, for the most part. Mm-hmm. It's who gets behind it, it's who, it's a lot, it's not different than a lot of other things in terms of who's gets it out there, right? Who spreads the idea of this is worth this or this is great, and I don't know. It's a complicated question.
Yeah, because I know what I like. I don't like to read books to tell me to like something.
Right.
You should like this because, and they, you have 200 pages of explaining why this plank of wood that's painted with yellow enamel is something that you should pay attention to. It's like, people do that on a daily basis, and they're not getting paid. They don't get a museum thing.
But if you get the attention of you as the reader to read 200 pages about this yellow painted wood, then you're now you've now spent time, which is money and value, and now you're entrenched in it. So now
right.
It's like a mind game. It's like whatever you can get people's attention, and it just balls into a snowball, until something comes out of it.
Yeah,
because I agree. I like certain things that other people don't like, but then I find myself also liking things in probably more than I would have because of marketing too,
Yeah.
Like, you give me like a piece of clothing like polo or something, one with 2 horses and a guy, and regular polo, Ralph Lauren, and I'm gonna pick the Ralph Lauren.
because you think the other one's a ripoff.
Because the other one's a ripoff. It's like
obviously.
it's like it's like Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin or something.
Yeah. Well, this experience certainly has started me thinking about why do I like certain pieces, because if you're brought up in a Western culture, and even in Seattle, you have Eastern culture and Western culture, you look at art and that's what you recognize as being good because somebody paid for it, and you go to gallery shows and this is good because somebody held that. Am I overly influenced by something just because of something that I witnessed as a child? And that really, this whole exercise has certainly made me think more about, do I actually think that it's good? Or is it because I'm used to it? That because landscapes and portraits seem to be, you do one or the other if you're trying to sell your work. And anything, outside of that seems to have very difficult time, making it. And even for myself, I love looking at landscapes. I like portraits because I like to see how the artists depict people's faces because people are interesting. But I don't know if that's an influence from childhood or if that's true.
For sure, if we're being conditioned to identify value in a specific way, it's so trippy. I mean, that's why this whole digital art experience is most interesting to me, because as an artist that makes things in real life and had resistance to digital art for a little bit, even though I appreciate it and have always seen the value in it, I think that's one of the ways in which we can use them to change people's minds, because you can make digital art for 800 hours and have it be as meticulous and time consuming or more than physical art. But you can also whip out art really quickly, which sometimes you can't with Paint. And so you can sketch something really quickly on an iPad or something, or on a tablet or something, and create some really far out images and then test them. I like to use social media and YouTube and all these things as a meter to test strangers' interest kind of in my art. And so, because it's hard. You have your friends and your family and people who support you that will tell you that everything you make, it's pretty good or whatever. And then you have other people that hate on you or whatever your, the meter is. But how do you get an objective opinion from what you're actually creating, and if it's hitting with people or not, if it's making them feel something or not? And so I'm really excited about this technological age for that, to bridge the gap between physical art and art installation experiences and stuff, which is what I'm probably the most into, and then how we actually redefine value, how we see it.
Yeah.
And I had a gallery for a number of years, and I started thinking, because I would get grants based on, I was able to use my social media as a basis for getting grants, right? But that had absolutely nothing to do with whether anybody bought the art, right? So just because you have 1,000 people clicking, oh, I like this illustration, did not translate into a sale, right? So it was really interesting to think about, to recognize that I could get grant money based on hits that had absolutely nothing to do with whether people came to the opening, whether they bought any of the works, whether the artist ever saw any of these people. So to me, there's still a disconnect between what's happening in the social media realm, because it's cheap. Somebody clicking like,
you can enjoy the
nothing.
art for free on social media.
Right.
It doesn't cost you anything to go anywhere. You don't have to go to a museum even. You know what I mean? So it's different.
Yeah.
There's some kind of fork in the road in our time right now where we're kind of, something's happening. Something's going to change.
Did you see the? Did you see the AI? Sorry, I think it's glitching a little bit, so I hear like an echo. Do you hear my echo as well?
Oh no.
I hear like my voice comes through double or something. Oh. So there's this social media influencer that's an AI, that's computer generated completely and stuff, and it's like it's like a micro influencer selling products and whatever. Have you seen that? It's a marketing company that put out basically a computer generated persona who's an influencer, and I'm hoping that
I saw that. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah. I haven't used it, but I've seen an article about it.
You're hoping what happens, man?
I'm hoping that the micro influencer market goes away completely, and that artists and people don't have to do social media anymore. Honestly, I feel like we've seen this awesome opportunity with the micro-influencer market and all that has been cool and empowering to push your own content and whatever, but now it's so corrupted. There's so many robots, it's so not ROI translatable.
It's about clicks.
That I'm hoping that it goes away. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in a weird society where the jester is winning. Like, it's the age of the jester, for real. Like, the more clownish you are, the more money you're gonna make.
Yeah.
That is the art, I guess. I don't know. Like,
well, the influencers are now being sued, for having too much sway over the population. So of course you're going to generate an AI.
A guy who attacked Gildan Coin, a cryptocurrency, attacked. I don't know what he said. I'm using the word attack, but wrote something bad about Gildan Coin, which is a cryptocurrency used, I think, in like Scotland or something. And they're being sued, or you got to cease and desist. And about you can't say anything about the blockchain.
Right. So everybody finds a workaround. Every time these things happen, they're like, you think that they're going to go away. You haven't dealt with the core problem,
exactly.
which is advertising.
Our kids are growing up on this. The next generation's coming up on this, etc. So I don't know. Like, this might be what it is. Like, if.
How do you filter, though?
But you have to build on top of it. Like, I always kind of say that things are being apped out from when I was in college or whatever. Like, I went to school to build websites or something. All that stuff is like pre-built now. Like, you don't even need to know the back end of that stuff. You can make it. Same thing with like music. You can easily make a beat in 10 minutes. I think London on the Beat, I think, even said that he doesn't ever give an artist a beat if it takes him more than 10 minutes to make. Like, as a musician, that's crazy. And he's I think he's actually a talented guy, and he's a popular, award-winning musician. But that's the thing. Like, things are just apped out kind of now, and like, so is our art and our music going to get apped out into the next thing? Is it things going to be built through our art and our music? Like, what does that look like? I don't know. Like, it just seems like things are just being built on top of each other in this.
We're educating the robots to take our place.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, that should be.
We're training them every day.
We're training them every day.
Like, the AI art, the GAN art, and all that stuff is pretty crazy. Like, I don't know how far they can take that, because it looks pretty far out now. But I got a feeling that we haven't even.
There's going to be a book written about how we should appreciate it.
Well, we haven't even probably started it. Really. I mean, this is just people. There's like 100 people doing that code, like making that code and doing it. It's like, so early than that, and that shit looks crazy. So.
Well, AI is not trying to please us as humans. It doesn't care about whether we find it aesthetically interesting, but we're being compelled to appreciate it somehow. Like somehow or another, we're not hip.
I do appreciate some of the AI shit, though. Like the
art
robots,
itself, or the technology
the
behind
art that it does come. Some of it, whether it's super mathematically like symmetrical and on point or whatever, or the stuff that's just crazy out there, like the GAN stuff, or the robot dogs fighting each other is pretty awesome to watch. But I definitely can envision that in 10 years it'd be two human dogs attacking me and taking my money.
But that's what's interesting about AI, because there was the New Art Academy. There was a discussion. One of the professor at Rutgers talking about AI still needs to have humans, involved, and I think that should be brought out more. Is humans are selecting the art or the music or whatever that goes into the thing, right. the training. And I would really like to see, like, the like some of those pieces. I'd really like to know what was the art that went into what did you train that software on?
That's interesting, because I know that Robbie Barrett, I remember seeing something on Twitter, and he's the guy that really got this popping, at least within the blockchain space too. He had to use, in his nude portraits, he claimed that he had to use white people to do it. So that's only using that to generate that. You know what I mean? So it is selective, even based on like race and stuff. And there was a reason for it. He laid out. But at the same time, that's what it is.
Yeah. There's some new. I went to a thing back in November, and they were talking about voice recognition software only recognizes particular languages without certain accents. So there's a machine learning software that's trying to train voice recognition for people with different accents, because when you have an entire industry based on a particular maybe East Coast or American accent in that way, then there's a whole, the rest of the world doesn't speak that way. Right. So how do we develop or broaden the tools if most of the world is not recognizing the voice recognition? It's an interesting. There's lots of stuff going on.
We're gonna eventually be one world, whatever. Like not in our lifetime, but it's gonna happen, and then other colonies from around will be the other countries. It's gonna be that interactive. Like that's just where we're going to. Like it started off small in the jungle where Nanu was, where there was that community, and then they expanded more and more, and then nations met, and then now computers are bringing it, and then we're going to have robots kill off the humans, and then they'll be friends with the Martians elsewhere. They'll be doing transcontinental universal voyages.
Multiple universes at once.
Yeah, all that. So we won't probably be around
So Star Trek is the future.
I don't know. That's the way I see it going. It's pretty out there, I guess, but it's not really.
I hope that we get our time back. I hope that we can use... I hope that if AIs are painting and making music and all this stuff and automating some of our jobs, that we can just get some of our time back and then see where human creativity can really go to. Because if instead of resisting all this stuff, like if a machine can create some badass abstract paintings from me putting in some of my paintings or something, and it can generate things that I can sell and that can give me automated income, and then I can have the time to think about a project for 4 months without having to pay for my bills, then I would like to see what I could come up with that a computer might not be able to. But if we never trust, I know it's a delicate system, or a balance, but if we never trust robots to automate our life, and if we don't try to include or accept, that our purpose, I think at least, our purpose on Earth is not to work ourselves to death to pay our bills, it's like I hope that we can free our time and find a way to continue to push our own creativity, things that machines can't do,
And I have because over time I started out in that realm of thinking until I started knowing people who were mechanically inclined and people who like to work the earth and people who enjoy the physical material world. I don't think everybody should relinquish these physical interactions in order to supposedly think, because not everybody is going to be a philosopher. So there's lots of skills that people have as human beings that are tangible.
Well, those people can use their hands to take our brains out and put it in the pods for the time. So they'll still be needed. They'll just be the last one slaughtered.
But I agree with that. I feel like I'm one of those people too, like I would... Yeah, and that's a really important point to make, because I don't mean, that everything that can be done by a machine should be done by a machine. I believe that, agriculture, or I guess permaculture before agriculture, was a pretty balanced time where we had small communities and everybody worked the land and stuff, and I feel like it's integral even to thinking, just to be able to have those downtimes and busy kind of monotonous land works and stuff like that kind of put you at ease. And so I agree with that completely. I feel like there's a balance somewhere, and it is intimidating to think about, but I think if we'd be in such a dystopian weird matrix, if we were just sitting around plugged into a computer thinking all day, hopefully we don't get there.
Yeah, because sometimes you just don't even want to think.
Some Black Mirror shit.
For sure.
I was cutting some rogue mint yesterday, and it was just this whole Zen. I didn't have goats to eat it, so I had to cut it myself. And and it was just something that I could do that for a half hour, and I felt like I'd accomplished something. And I have a picture of the mint-free zone.
Yeah. Mowing your grass is like that. Go mow a lawn, everybody. Go feel that nature in your backyard. Go take some shears to some of them plants back there.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Even if they're not yours. Go shave a cat's back. Do something. God.
Do something with your hands.
Yeah.
Because I not too far from the Appalachian Trail, and so we see the through hikers and stuff on occasion, and that's another really it's fascinating talking to those folks that go through that. But I think it seems to be on occasion it can be dangerous, but
But like we talked about earlier, danger makes you feel alive. That's the best high. So when Nanu went hitchhiking earlier in our story, in our adventure, and she had to pull a knife on somebody, she had to live. I was living right there. Like, you can't do that in a pod. In AI, you can't do that.
No. And there are days, you could go months and not have anything memorable.
And knock on some wood. I don't want that to happen to me at all today, or any of us listening, any of our guests. Knock on so much wood right now.
Nobody, you shouldn't have to feel that way.
I hate that.
Yeah. But, if you can't get a thrill out of, planting a potato, and you also have to up your high.
I took my kid out, I had to pull him off the damn Fortnite the other day, and it was like, because it was a nice day, I was like 50 degrees out and sunny, so I took him on a bike ride. We went bike riding like 13 miles, and my whole thing was telling him, I was like, yeah, you gotta enjoy nature, you gotta get out, it's nature, like, stop being a robot. I was trying to school him, like, get off your ass, please, kid.
But he'll remember that, even though right now he's probably fussing about it.
First, like 5 miles, he wasn't feeling it. He came around.
The first 5 miles?
Yeah, I had to hear it.
My dad would take us hiking. We'd go to this lake. It was freezing. And my dad would try to have some kind of fancy. He'd make these Belgian pancakes on the fire. But the lake was frozen. It was so cold. But we probably did a number of, these kind of hiking or these camping things that I don't remember because it was so mundane. We took out a fishing pole. But that, I will always remember that frozen lake, and we had to jump in that lake and before we got our Belgian pancakes.
Damn.
That sounds awesome. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But,
what do you think about the whole VR for nature stuff, like the wild immersion stuff that shows you species in extinction, or like, for example, if you're a person who doesn't have access to nature because lives in an inner city, has to work every day all day, and has the capability to project like a pretty realistic jungle into their house, is that good or bad?
I think it's kind of cool.
I think it can be cool because there's this there are a couple places like Mount Athos. Women can't go there. This place that has historically relevant illuminated manuscripts and things like that, and I'd love to be able to see it, even though I probably would never, even if it was available for me to go to. But it's kind of cool to be able to see things that you would not have been allowed access physically. So I think that's kind of cool.
It's still just dangerous, though, in my opinion, too. It's good, but same thing, like the VR stuff, like the serotonin levels go through the roof, like it's like addictive, at the same time, like.
Right, so it's not just looking at art. There's other things you can see with VR.
Yeah, like, you just gotta be careful with everything, I guess.
Because your brain doesn't know the difference.
Yeah, you get overstimulation, and I mean, that's a danger, isn't it?
What do you think?
For sure, yeah. I think it's. I think about it in terms of therapeutic stuff. Most useful, like AIs to take care of AIs or robots that are cyborgs that are more humane or whatever to take care of elderly people, and to be able to have somebody who's bedridden or something spend a couple hours of their day in nature and VR. Like, those things I think are amazing. But I agree. I mean, I feel like hopefully we can all find a way to merge all the technological advances with some human, back to human interaction and real life stuff. And I think that's why all the meetups that happen around the world in person, or the art installations I'm trying to do, like the intention portals, and these things are important, because if we don't, we're creating the culture, right? So if we don't create the part of the culture that puts emphasis in meeting up in real life and being out in nature and doing these things, then it is gonna disappear. And so hopefully we can do a good job about that, and continuing to, like you said, like, be vigilant about the serotonin levels with the VR, and it would be awesome if as we have the power to develop these systems, we could set timers on certain things, that after 20 minutes or half an hour of being in VR, it kind of turns off purposely and it says look around the room or go outside or something. And so it sounds idealistic, but I do see a lot of people in that space that are being mindful developing these new technologies in a way that don't completely remove us from our present moment, you know.
Yeah, like, I mean, they made the hot tub at some time, and people got out of the hot tub after 15 or 20 minutes, so it's made it like
Turn
that.
it off.
I'd be in a hot tub all the time if I could, but I'm not, so I've broken an addiction.
And one thing I think is going to, because we were talking about what are things that are going to be different next year, and I think the one of the things is going to be we're super optimistic, starting out really optimistic, and then there are dual sides of everything. All these technologies have dual good and bad purposes, and all of it depends on your perspective of whether something's good or bad. And I'm hoping that the recognition that these are dual, that there are, you should trust the math, but do you trust the mathematician?
Who defines the good and bad?
Right, and that's the dilemmas. Who are we willing to entrust our lives to?
Once you start setting precedent on blocking certain things too, then you have to start blocking everything too. That's another problem.
Yep.
I don't know. It's all complicated.
If we're not better, the tech won't matter, you know? Just for real. I try to tell that to myself all the time, because I do think that at the root of anything we're creating, we're evolving as humanity. So checking each other's ethos and trust and transparency and all that. Like, I'm pretty focused on that right now. Working with some companies that are developing systems to hold each other accountable and to give trust back to our communities, because that's really what's important. Exactly. Like, if you don't know who to trust, if there's CGI and fake news everywhere, and we can really just, figure out what real information is or real intentions are, then it gets really muddy. So, but yeah, it's an interesting point for sure, I think.
Yeah, the deep fakes and all that stuff going on too is just getting started. Like, it's going to be really hard to trust things digitally in the future, even as we move into the digital realm. Like you're saying, there has to be some kind of trusting, some kind of trusted oracles and stuff. And I don't know, maybe that's a reason to have faith in the physical world, is because
if you fall, you hit your head.
Yeah, like there's consequences in real life. You can go punch somebody in the face or somebody, and, you can do stuff like sue them, and they can.
Or there'll just be communities where interaction with real world. that's where the trend is. It's like, you want to have a real world experience, you can actually have blood, like Fight Club, like that.
Well, that's like, what's that HBO show where they live in a little petri dish, and the humans go visit it, but then the robots escape to the real world.
What is the show?
I forget. It's some HBO show, dystopian thing.
Huh.
I forget what it's called.
Yeah, but but I hope I'm hopeful that where it started out in my youth, I was like, I want the machines to win. I'm more of I want the humans to win. At this stage of my life, I was like, I have to be able to trust the humans that they're going to do the right thing. Because if the computers are programmed to do wrong things based on a human, we're still in a bad place.
But are we just sounding like old people? Like, that's what I'm worried about. Like, if I was a kid, I'd be listening to us and be like, these fucking old people, they don't know what they're talking about. Like, we're the ones doing this shit. Now get away. So, that's the problem I have. I have to think from both sides. Like, is there a way, or are we just hating? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to be on both sides of the fence on this.
Well, I trusted, when you're in college, you trust you're around people who are like you, and when you're in school, you see so much about how people who are like you, and then, like, for instance, going on the backpacking, you're around people who are like you. You have so many things that are more in common than not, and then you go out into the world and you find out that's not necessarily how it is. But I'm a lot more optimistic than I was in college in many ways, because I was definitely let the machines take over, because the old people just ruined everything.
See, exactly. Like, now,
since the old people ruined everything, I'm like, oh no.
It's like when the hippies became yuppies in the 80s and stuff.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's like, I don't know.
But then I trusted my peers. So it's kind of like I trusted my peers. I didn't trust a computer more than my peers. So I still so I'm actually, it's kind of back to my younger days and feeling about people is you can trust your peers, but pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah, that's an interesting point for sure. That are we being, where's the idealistic point? And because I think about that too. I went through that phase too, where I was kind of super resistant to tech, and then super optimistic and idealistic about it. And now I'm at the point where I'm a little concerned about people's greed and intention. And it's like we can all catch the ego like a virus. We can all catch the greed like a virus, or whatever we are going through can really, fear and scarcity can really influence our decisions. And if we're shaping a society that's developing the technology from that point of fear and scarcity and greed, then we're really going to be screwed, But if we can all kind of keep each other accountable about being conscious of where we're sending this and why, like, how all cryptos kind of collapsed pretty quickly based on excessive greed and all this stuff. And then now the technology is starting to resurface, where the real dream of Bitcoin possibilities and just blockchain in general possibilities is starting to come out. And it's definitely an interesting point. But I wonder that too. I mean, who knows? Who knows where we're heading into? It's cool to see both sides of it, and I think that people are more aware now. I think the crazy bubbles that happened and the insanity that the blockchain society brought upon us, like when it was really high, it's a good magnifying glass. It's like a good window into seeing how things could go. I mean, the extremes are good, like the pendulum swim. So the super optimistic and the super down waves are really great measuring points for us, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess that's why we're all in this space.
Yeah, but you have to have a good core. You have to know yourself. I think is really gives you an ability to withstand all this. If you know yourself, then you can withstand all these changes. If you're unsure, you kind of go with the wind.
Yeah.
You're like a wise Pachamama person. Do you know this? People told you this before. Like the wise oracle that lives in the mountain.
She's from Seattle, that's why.
It's all that water and mountains.
Rain.
and rain, yeah.
It's all rain.
All right, well, I think we got to start wrapping it up here in a jiff here. 1 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, I wanted...
So what's next? Before we get out of here, what's the next? What can we expect from Miss Berks in 2019?
2019. I'm pretty stoked about PixEOS. I'm starting to look into that project. Combines a lot of the interesting pixel play projects out there, and the community is super strong. The group is super strong. So I'm having some calls with them, and they do a really good effort in bringing real life art and experiences, merging them with computer games and with online community, with social community in real life. So I'm super excited for that.
Cool. That was our top part of our top 5 news today.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. The group, the whole community there already is so incredible, and that's a really great point on people that really check their ethos and their intentions and why they want to do the things they want to do. So I really respect that, and I think I'm focusing a lot on that after being in and around this blockchain world for a little bit. So working on transparency and trust. I'm working on a nonprofit we're creating called T for Trust, and it's a glass. It's a glass and paybook.com. If you want to learn more about it, you can go there. But basically, just putting an emphasis on keeping each other accountable and trusting. Proof of trust in humans, and so that's really important as well. And I think my art is gonna reflect a lot of that. Just the next wave of blockchain and what we can do with this technology, going back to the roots of why it's important, hoping that a lot of people get access to this information, turning it more into an educational experience. And just, I feel like I've realized after a while that even though I'm human and I can get caught up in the fun, crazy excitement, all the ups, highs and lows of this culture, I really do feel like I have a responsibility. Like I have been giving a voice of some sort, no matter how small, or big. We all have an audience, and I think it's really important to see what our intentions are and how we want to contribute to our audiences and to our communities. And so I know I sound like an old person and like whatever, like a hippie old person, but it's true, man. I've been feeling like things we do really have an impact in our surroundings, and so that's what I'm really feeling.
Takes hit of peyote. Things really have an impact, man.
Just something, man. Just high on life. That's what's up. But you guys get it. Y'all are really good people, and like I said, it was great meeting you in person. And I feel like you do your part in this so well with this podcast.
Back at you, Nanu. Appreciate it and everything you do for the space as well.
Well, next time we'll talk to you. We're looking forward to seeing. So, are you going to be completely disengaged or disconnected with being in Bali? Or are you going to be posting?
No, I'll be super present. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it'll be the same. Honestly, I'll slow down a little bit. Like I'll make less commissions per year and just focus on working slower for my health's sake. And then, but I'll be online. I'll be running nanuberks.com. I'll be I'll be doing the same things I'm doing now, just trying to find a little balance, slowing down a little bit.
Cool.
Sweet.
All right, looking forward to keeping track of you.
Yeah, same. Thank you so much, guys. It's been really fun.
All right.
We'll talk to you soon. Later.
Have fun.
Good talk. Nanu Berks. That's Nanu Berks on Twitter, I think, too.
Yep.
Check her out.
Is very present.
Yeah. She has a cool story. She has a cool Medium story, too, you can check out. She wrote about her journey up until this point, how she got here, too. It's on her Twitter Medium page. But yeah.
Should we do the little thank yous for folks we talked to this year?
Yeah.
Or last year?
Let's give a shout out to 2018.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Started out with Art Gnome, episode 9.
Oh, shit.
Cryptograffiti.
Art Gnome, Jason Bailey.
Cryptograffiti, episode 10.
Oh, yeah. That was part of our top 10 news with the Black Swan.
Yep. Jessica Angel.
Shout out to Jessica.
She came in the studio. That's episode 11.
She had a good interview.
Yep. Tatiana Moroz. That's episode 12.
Tatiana, the first musician with a music token, I believe.
Brian Hoffman and Dan Anderson, episode 13.
That was a good one.
It just seems, somebody was commenting that one month in crypto is like a year in real life, and this is exactly
that seemed
how
like a long
this
time
is.
ago. Yeah,
It really
Brian
does.
and Dan from Bitcoins and Brian from Open Bazaar.
Jess Hograves, episode 14.
Yeah, what's she doing now? She's still doing the Codex?
She's still doing the Codex thing. She's very heavily involved with SHIOS and
I've seen the SHIOS tweet.
just generally with EOS. So that's a whole other area of discussion. But she's branched to using the Codex as a platform, at least in my opinion, using it as a platform to venture off into other areas and expanding her experience and expertise. For episode 15, we had Rare Art Labs and James Wall of Video.
Yeah.
That
a good
was
one.
That was fun.
Mm-hmm. That was interesting. That was when we got into, later on in the conversation, the multi-dimension.
Yeah.
Him and Trevor. Trevor from Video was on as well. And,
it was a logistical issue because we had all these calls in.
Yeah, that was we had six of us on at once.
Yep. Then we started the ethereal coverage. So that started with episode 16.
How many interviews did we do on episode 16?
Episode 16, let's see, probably about 14 we talked about during episode 16 because we
14 or so people
or
entities we chatted with over there at Ethereal. Shout out
we
to
we had 17 interviews during Ethereal. It's just that
that was 14 we had. Shout out to Consensus and Will King and those guys for helping out, and Ruth from Further Field especially.
Yep. So episode 17 we had Ruth and Sam
Hart.
Sam Hart on episode 17. Episode 18 we had Marcus Dowling and Matt Hall.
Matt of CryptoPunks and Tune Music.
That was fun because it was all music the whole time. I think we just talked about music. And then episode 19 we had Judy and Bea, who were part of the Ethereal.
That was a good convo. It was a convo about DadaNYC.
Yeah.
The visual social media thing.
For episode 20 we had Rob Myers.
Rob, the crypto art intellect.
Yeah, every time he posts something, it's like, wow, you were there you've been doing this for a long time, one way, shape, or form. So
Rob's a legend.
He's a really an amazing resource. DJ Blau, that's episode 20.
Yeah, that was an interesting episode. I don't know what's up with their whole thing on that festival. Have you heard anything about it?
No, not so much activity anymore on the Telegram, so I'm not sure what's happening. I haven't seen any press releases on future similar festivals, but it was cool to talk to him. Mac Flavel of CryptoKitties, that's episode 21.
Yep. CryptoKitties still doing their thing.
Let's see. Maybe that's episode 22. Christian Moss.
Yep, Christian's doing a lot of stuff with Lightning. Seen he just got some new Saratobi thing going on. Always keeping up to date with Christian Moss and stuff.
Coin Artist, episode 24.
She's been killing it lately, and she's taken on the XRP army very tough lately.
Yeah.
Half her tweets seem to be about how bad the XRP Ripple community is.
Yeah. Super Rare, 25, episode 25.
John Squared, Jonathan and John from Super Rare.
That's
awesome. Good episode. I like those guys.
And episode 26 with Naturel.
The legendary Naturel. That was a good one, too.
So we really ran the gamut of...
That was all in 2018. Damn.
Yeah.
And we did a bunch of conferences and we wrote some articles.
Wrote
a lot of shit this past year.
We had workshop, three session art workshop.
Education things.
So, 2018 was certainly a reflection of everything going on in the community.
Yeah, it was fun. It's interesting. A lot of man, you think back what was going on in 2018 January to now, it's a lot different.
Yeah,
for sure. A lot more going on.
Yep.
Everybody's trying to strike it rich, man.
Now everybody just needs to take a breath.
Did you see that CryptoKitty sale for $170,000, bruh? Yeah, man, all we gotta do is make this art piece and this token, man, and market it, man. Get some people on Upwork to go and shill it for us and make some anonymous Telegram accounts, man. Everybody got it, man. We can money launder it. We can do everything with this
I got
token.
a kitty right here. Yeah, but thanks so much for everybody who talked to us. It was pretty astounding. And when looking back at it, you just go episode to episode, and it's just like part of the routine. But it was really stunning what we were able to accomplish and learn last year.
Yeah, a lot of fun. We like to joke around a lot, and so.
Hopefully you're laughing with us and not at us.
Even if you're laughing at us, at least throw some tasty pie our way. Not some of that old Safeway pie.
At least
use some brown grade A organic eggs in that pie, playa.
Exactly. All right. Thanks so much for listening.
All right. Let's get 2019. Woohoo.
All right. Bye-bye.